In the heart of Africa, where the rivers are dark and full of danger, a young woman stood trembling, holding a crying baby close to her chest. The water rippled around her, and glowing eyes emerged from the shadows. She screamed, her voice echoing through the silent jungle, but no one answered. Who was this girl? Why was she here? And could she escape the terrifying creatures closing in? Stay with me, because this story will take you on a journey of bravery, mystery, and survival. Once upon a time, deep in the lands of Africa, there was a mysterious river. The villagers called it the River of Shadows because no one who ventured into it ever returned. Legends spoke of marine monsters living beneath its surface, creatures with sharp teeth and glowing eyes. They were said to be guardians of a hidden treasure, but no one dared to find out if the stories were true. In a small village near this river lived a 27-year-old girl named Amina. Amina was kind and brave, always helping her neighbors and caring for the children of the village. But Amina had a secret, one that would soon lead her to the River of Shadows. One night, as the moonlight shone through the thick jungle trees, Amina heard a strange noise. It was the faint cry of a baby, coming from the direction of the river. Her heart raced. Who could leave a baby by the river, she wondered. Without a second thought, she grabbed a lantern and ran toward the sound. When she reached the riverbank, she saw a small basket floating on the water. Inside was a baby, crying loudly. Amina's instincts kicked in. She waded into the cold, dark water and carefully lifted the basket. But as she turned to head back to the shore, the water began to ripple. Something was moving beneath the surface. Who's there? Amina called out, her voice trembling. She held the baby tightly and took a step back. Suddenly, a pair of glowing eyes appeared in the water, followed by another, and another. The marine creatures were waking up. Their sharp teeth glinted in the moonlight as they swam closer to her. With her heart pounding, Amina turned and ran back to the shore as fast as she could. The creatures were fast, their sleek bodies slicing through the water like knives. Just as she reached the riverbank, one of the creatures leapt out of the water, its jaw snapping inches from her heels. She stumbled but managed to pull herself and the baby to safety. Amina looked back at the river, her chest heaving. The creature's glowing eyes watched her from beneath the surface, but they did not come onto land. It seemed they were bound to the water. She held the baby close and whispered, "You're safe now." Back in the village, Amina brought the baby to her home. The child was a girl, no more than a few weeks old. Amina decided to name her Kessia, which meant miracle in her native language. She vowed to protect Kessia, no matter what. The next morning, Amina told the village elders about what had happened. They listened in silence, their faces grave. Finally, the oldest elder, a man named Baba Omori, spoke. "The River of Shadows is not just a place of danger," he said. "It is a place of power. The child you saved was placed there for a reason. You must be careful, Amina. The river does not give up its secrets lightly." Despite Baba Omari's warning, Amina could not ignore the connection she felt to Kessia. She raised the child as her own, and as the years passed, Kessia grew into a bright and curious girl. But strange things began to happen in the village. Crops failed, livestock disappeared, and the river overflowed its banks, flooding the fields. The villagers whispered that the river was angry because Amina had taken Kessia away. One night, as a storm raged outside, Baba Omori came to Amina's home. "You must return the child to the river," he said. "The balance has been disturbed. If you do not, the entire village will suffer." Amina was torn. She loved Kessia with all her heart, but she could not ignore the suffering of her people. With tears in her eyes, she decided to take Kessia back to the river. But as they approached the water, Kessia spoke for the first time in a voice that was not her own. "Do not fear," she said. "I am the spirit of the river, and I chose Amina to protect me. The floods and the famine are not my doing. There is another force at work here, one that seeks to destroy the village and claim the treasure I guard. Amina stared at Kessia, her heart pounding. What must I do? She asked. You must journey to the heart of the river and face the darkness that dwells there, Kessia said. Only then will the village be saved. Though fear gripped her, Amina knew she had no choice. She prepared for the journey, gathering supplies and saying goodbye to the villagers. They watched her go with a mixture of hope and dread, knowing that she might never return. As Amina entered the river, the water seemed to part before her, creating a path that led into the depths of the jungle. The glowing eyes of the creatures watched her from the shadows, but they did not attack. It was as if they knew she was coming to face their master. The journey was long and treacherous. Amina encountered many challenges along the way, swirling currents, tangled vines, and eerie whispers that seemed to come from the water itself. But she pressed on, driven by her love for Kessia and her determination to save her village. Finally, she reached the heart of the river, a dark and forbidding place where the water was as black as night. There, she saw a figure standing on a small island. It was a man, tall and cloaked in shadows. His eyes glowed like the creatures, and his voice was like thunder when he spoke. You dare to enter my domain, he said. You, a mere mortal, think you can challenge me? Amina stepped forward, her hands trembling but her voice steady. I do not fear you, she said. I have come to end your reign of terror and restore peace to my village. The man laughed, a sound that echoed through the darkness. Very well, he said. If you wish to fight me, then so be it. But know this, you cannot defeat me with strength alone. You must use your heart and your mind. With that, the man raised his arms, and the water around Amina began to churn. The creatures of the river emerged, their glowing eyes fixed on her. But instead of attacking, they circled her, waiting for her to make her move. Amina closed her eyes and took a deep breath. She remembered Kessia's words, do not fear. She reached into her heart and found the courage she needed. Then she spoke, her voice clear and strong. I am not here to fight you, she said. I am here to understand you. Why do you torment my village? What do you seek? The man hesitated, his glowing eyes narrowing. You wish to understand me, he said. Very well. I will show you. In an instant, Amina was surrounded by visions. She saw the river as it once was, a place of beauty and abundance. She saw the man, a guardian who had been tasked with protecting the treasure but had been corrupted by greed and loneliness. She saw the creatures, not as monsters but as spirits bound to the river, longing to be free. When the visions ended, Amina looked at the man with compassion. You have suffered, she said. But your pain does not justify the suffering you have caused. Let me help you find peace. The man's eyes softened, and for a moment, the darkness around him seemed to lift. But then he shook his head. It is too late for me, he said. But it is not too late for the river. Take the treasure and use it to heal your village. Free the spirits, and restore the balance. With those words, the man disappeared, leaving behind a golden chest. Amina opened it and found it filled with jewels and gold, enough to provide for the village for generations. But more importantly, she felt the presence of the spirits around her, their gratitude washing over her like a warm tide. When Amina returned to the village, she was greeted as a hero. The floods receded, the crops began to grow again, and the villagers' spirits were lifted. Amina used the treasure to build schools, hospitals, and wells, ensuring a brighter future for everyone. As for Kessia, she continued to grow, her bond with Amina stronger than ever. Together, they would visit the river, now a place of peace and beauty, and remember the journey that had brought them together. And though the river of shadows still held its secrets, it was no longer a place of fear but a place of hope and renewal. Amina's heart pounded. She knew she had to get out of the river, but the creatures were blocking her path. She screamed for help, her voice echoing through the jungle. Help! Someone, please help me. But the village was too far, and no one could hear her. The baby's cries grew louder, almost as if it could sense the danger. Amina looked into the infant's eyes and whispered, "I won't let anything happen to you. I promise." With that, she took a deep breath and started moving toward the shore, her eyes never leaving the glowing ones in the water. The creatures lunged toward her, but Amina was quick. She dodged one and splashed water at another. She moved as fast as she could, her feet slipping on the muddy riverbed. Just when she thought she was safe, one of the creatures leapt out of the water, its jaw snapping inches away from her. Amina screamed and stumbled, but she didn't let go of the baby. As she reached the riverbank, she felt something grab her ankle. She looked down and saw a slimy tentacle wrapping around her leg. Amina kicked and struggled, but the creature was strong. She screamed again, louder this time, hoping someone, anyone, would hear her. Meanwhile, back in the village, an old storyteller named Baba Ode heard the faint echoes of her scream. He knew the dangers of the River of Shadows and immediately gathered the villagers. "We must help her," he said. "The river has taken too many lives already. We can't let it take another." The villagers grabbed torches, ropes, and spears and ran toward the river. As they arrived, they saw Amina struggling to free herself from the creature's grasp. Without hesitation, they formed a line and began pulling her out of the water. Baba Ode chanted an ancient song, one that was said to weaken the river's guardians. The creatures hissed and retreated as the villagers pulled Amina and the baby to safety. Exhausted and shaking, Amina collapsed on the ground, still holding the baby tightly. The villagers cheered, but Baba Ode's face was serious. "This baby is no ordinary child," he said. "The river guardians would not have reacted this way if it were. There is something special about this child, something powerful." Amina looked at the baby, who had stopped crying and was now smiling at her. "What do you mean?" she asked. Baba Ode explained that the legend spoke of a child who would one day bring peace to the land, a child who could communicate with the creatures of the river. The guardians were not trying to harm the baby, they were trying to protect it from the wrong hands. Amina couldn't believe what she was hearing. "But why was the baby left in the river?" she asked. "That is a mystery we must solve," Baba Ode replied. "But for now, we must keep the child safe." The villagers agreed, and Amina took the baby into her care. But her adventure was far from over. The creatures of the river would not rest until they were sure the baby was safe. And Amina knew she would have to face them again, this time with the strength and courage of her entire village behind her. In the days that followed, the village became a fortress of unity and preparation. Amina and the villagers worked tirelessly to fortify their defenses and understand the nature of the baby's mysterious connection to the river. Baba Ode began to recount ancient tales, delving into the forgotten history of their land. Long ago, he began, the River of Shadows was a sacred place, a conduit between our world and the spirit realm. The guardians were not monsters but protectors of the balance. They ensured that the treasures of the river were never misused. But something changed. A darkness came upon the land, corrupting the river and its guardians. It is said that only a pure heart can restore the river's harmony. As Baba Ode spoke, Amina felt a growing resolve. She realized that the baby, Kessia, held the key to this ancient prophecy. But the path to restoring balance would not be easy. The villagers decided to embark on a journey to the heart of the river, where they believed the source of the corruption lay. The journey began at dawn. Amina, Baba Ode, and a group of brave villagers set out, carrying supplies and weapons for protection. Kessia, now cradled in a specially woven sling on Amina's chest, seemed unusually calm, as if she understood the gravity of their mission. The river's edge was eerily quiet as they ventured deeper into the jungle. The air was thick with tension, and the villagers moved cautiously, their eyes scanning for any sign of danger. As they progressed, they encountered challenges that tested their courage and unity. One evening, they reached a treacherous crossing where the river split into two branches. The water was turbulent, and the roar of the rapids was deafening. Baba Ode studied the currents and pointed to a narrow, calmer passage. "This way," he said. "But be wary. The guardians will not make it easy." As they navigated the crossing, the water began to ripple ominously. The creatures appeared, their glowing eyes piercing through the darkness. This time, they did not attack immediately but circled the group, creating a sense of foreboding. Amina held Kessia tightly, her heart pounding. "We mean no harm," Baba Ode called out, his voice steady. "We seek to restore the balance and free you from this curse." The creatures hesitated, their movement slowing. It was as if they understood his words but were bound by a force greater than their will. One of the villagers, a young man named Kwesi, stepped forward with a torch and began to sing a haunting melody. The song, taught to him by his grandmother, was said to soothe restless spirits. To everyone's astonishment, the creatures stopped circling and retreated slightly. The group seized the moment to cross the river, their spirits buoyed by the small victory. Amina whispered to Kessia, "We are going to make it. I promise." As they delved deeper into the jungle, they came upon ancient ruins covered in vines and moss. Baba Ode's eyes widened in recognition. "This is it," he said. "The gateway to the heart of the river." The ruins were breathtaking, with carvings depicting scenes of harmony between humans and the river's creatures. But there were also images of chaos and despair, a stark reminder of the consequences of imbalance. At the center of the ruins was an altar, its surface etched with symbols that seemed to glow faintly in the fading light. As the group approached the altar, the air grew heavy. Amina felt a strange energy coursing through her, and Kessia began to hum softly, her voice carrying an otherworldly quality. The villagers watched in awe as the symbols on the altar glowed brighter, illuminating the area. Suddenly, a deep voice echoed through the ruins. "Who dares to disturb the sacred heart of the river?" From the shadows emerged a figure cloaked in darkness, his glowing eyes identical to the creatures. It was the river's guardian, the source of its corruption. Baba Ode stepped forward, his staff held firmly. "We come to restore what was lost," he said. "The river's balance must be returned, and the darkness banished." The guardian laughed, a sound that sent shivers through the group. "You are brave but foolish," he said. "The river's curse cannot be undone. It is bound to me, as I am bound to it." Amina stepped forward, her voice unwavering. "We will not leave until the river is healed," she said. "This child is the key, and we will do whatever it takes to break the curse." The guardian's eyes narrowed. "Very well," he said. "If you wish to challenge me, you must prove your worth. Face the trials of the river, and perhaps you will earn the right to restore its balance." The ground trembled as the ruins transformed into a labyrinth of water and stone. The villagers stood together, their determination unshaken. Each trial tested their courage, wisdom, and unity, from navigating perilous rapids to deciphering ancient riddles. In the final trial, Amina was separated from the group and faced the guardian alone. He loomed over her, his presence overwhelming. "Why do you fight for this river?" he asked. "What drives you to risk everything?" Amina's voice was steady as she replied. "What would you do if you were in Amina's place? Would you have the courage to face the river of shadows? Let us know in the comments below. And don't forget to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and hit the notification bell so you never miss another thrilling African folktale. Stay tuned for the next chapter of Amina's story, where we uncover the true identity of the baby and the secrets of the river. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.